Hi, I'm Leslie Meredith with Breakbulk Events and Media. We have just finished a fascinating panel on risk, one of the biggest topics that gets talked about at Breakbulk Americas, and I'm sure all year long. And I've got Corey Henry here from McDermott in the studio, who was on the panel today. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate Breakbulk Americas, the Breakbulk Committee. You guys put on a remarkable event every year.
Well, thank you. It's good to have you back here. Good to have you in Houston.
Been traveling a bit. It's good to be home, albeit short-lived. So I'll start traveling again at the end of the week, and hopefully I can come back and put my feet on the ground again.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me the highlights of this panel.
Well, the highlights, there were several panel attendees, and it was a mixture of the industry, the players in the industry, from freight forwarders to actual principal owners to actually cargo owners. And it was a very robust discussion concerning risk that are passed down from principal owners along to the contractors or the stakeholders involved in the overall effort. So very, very, very in-depth, and we can have that conversation forever. Right, so.
Now, I'm assuming everyone doesn't have the same opinion as to where the risk should be, how it should be distributed.
Oh, of course not. So freight forwarders are going to always say they have to assume more risk because their margins of profit are so thin as it is. As an EPC, we're going to say the exact same thing. The only ones who probably would not say that are actually principal owners of cargo, and that's the ultimate clients who we're all working for.
Okay, so what were some of the solutions or possible pathways?
I think the major thing that we settled on there amongst the panel members was it's an education. It's an education process to educate everyone on what we're saying when we say risk. How do we define risk? And from my perspective, risk is defined per a particular scope of work, and then per each activity involved in that particular scope of work. And then it's an assumed risk, right? Or it's a risk that's definitely can take a place. And you have to make a distinction between that. And then you make
what
a fair.
What does that mean? Assumed versus the other?
When you are there of course there are risks involved in when you have something in an ocean carrier crossing the sea, crossing the Atlantic or crossing the Pacific Ocean. And a lot of those risks are assumed. A lot of those risks, weather, and you'll see ship owners usually say, they'll give you a caveat with everything they send you, and it's these little acronyms, AGW, which means all going well, WOG, without guarantee. Those are risks that they're trying to mitigate themselves because, of course, there are external factors that affects that activity. And those external and internal factors affects all of the activity until you get to the end point of that operation or that effort. And that's what we have a hard time doing oftentimes, is quantifying the risk involved with each activity associated within a particular effort. Principal owner contracts are geared around an effort. I want that reactor installed here, and I want to cut it on, and I want it to work.
At a certain point in time.
At a certain point in time, right? So again, your time period, right? So if I have a 20-month effort, right, I assume that there may be some risks that will take me to 21 months or 22 months. And we try to mitigate those factors. And again, those are external and internal factors. However, if I give that to one of my freight forwarders or one of my potential project partners, and they are negligent in selecting their service providers, and there's something that happens along the line there, I'm going to expect that my project partner assume that risk. We can talk about sharing and to what degree, right? But I expect them to assume some of that risk. So, it's always been a challenge. And the challenge upstream is that the principal client, they really don't care. You told me it was going to be there in 20 months, and it's not.
Right, sort of bottom liner.
It's bottom liner. I mean, and that's practical in anything you do. I mean, you can put that in a social concept, a social context, right? If I told my wife I'm leaving there and I'll be there at 2 o'clock, regardless of traffic or anything else, if I'm there at 2:30, to her it's a lie.
Right, exactly, right. You didn't come through.
No matter what the factors were, exactly, and that's the bottom line, is you have to finish it through the effort. So assuming and quantifying the potential internal and external factors, right, to cover yourself, and then you share that. You have to have a partnership to be able to share that.
Absolutely.
And we have to do a better job at educating principal owners about what that risk is involved. Mm-hmm. And what we're too quick to do is we're too quick to accept work and accept risk simply for the sake of of securing the job. Right? And by the same token, so are our partners, so are freight forwarders, so are truckers, so are ocean carriers, right? They always say, yeah, absolutely, we'll do it. And they accept all kinds of risk without knowing, without quantifying the internal and external factors. So.
Right. Well, that sounds like really good advice that pretty much applies across the supply chain.
I would say so. So I think it's identification, right? It's quantification, and then it's education.
Well, Corey, that was very informative. Thank you so much for sharing
Always
it with
a pleasure,
us.
Leslie. Always a pleasure.
All right.